Hello dear students, welcome to this class on poetry. I hope you are all enjoying your online classes, and today is the first session on poetry. We'll learn what poetry is, the characteristic features of poetry, and before that, let me ask you a question. What is a poem? How is it different from a prose piece? Right from your school days, even in your nursery days, you have heard rhymes, you have learned poems in the school and in the college. Now that you are in the first year of your college days, again, you will come across umpteen number of poems. So what is a poem? Remember the rhyme that you have learned in your nursery days? Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. So what comes to your mind when you listen to this rhyme, or when you think about this rhyme? What are the things that comes to your mind? What is a poem? You think about imagination, emotion, you think about the musical quality, the sound devices. It's an imaginative recreation, right? Imaginative or creative representation of life.
The Romantic poet William Wordsworth defined poetry as a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotions recollected in tranquility. For Coleridge, it is a product of imagination working on the objects of life and nature. It is best words in best order. For Shelley, it's a record of the best and happiest moments of happiest and best minds. For the Victorian poet Matthew Arnold, poetry is a criticism of life. From all these definitions, what we can derive is that poetry is concerned with emotion, imagination, subjectivity, and so on. What exactly is poetry? It's a form of creative writing that expresses a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience, with words carefully chosen for their sound and for their images and ideas they suggest, not just their obvious meaning. There is something underlying and arranged in intentional separate lines, sometimes ending in rhyme. So now we find that there are certain other elements also that comes to play, like rhyme. And also for the purpose of creating a particular emotional response through its layers of meaning, placement of words, sound, and rhythm. So, what is poetry? So, we have seen a few points here. One is there is this creative element, it is a creative representation about what? About a particular experience in life, in nature, maybe in the lives of others. And also, what is the order and what is the diction in a particular order? It's arranged in a particular order, and there are sound elements like rhyme, and the words chosen are different from a prose piece, and about the purpose of creating that emotional response. And also, all these play an important role in creating this emotional response from the audience. Let's see the characteristics of poetry. Poetry uses concentrated language which is different from the language used in prose. Less words but more meaning. Maybe many layers of meaning, suggestive words, words which suggest more than what it says. All words are chosen very carefully so that each word is packed with meanings. They are chosen for their sound quality and layers of meaning. Often poetry uses language in a beautiful, creative, and expressive way. It expresses strong feelings and emotions, as William Wordsworth says. They are intentionally arranged in separate lines in a particular order, maybe in the best order possible. The lines are sometimes arranged in stanza forms. There are different kinds of stanza forms, different forms of poetry that we will learn in the coming classes. And then there is this important element, that is rhythm. Poetry has a rhythmic quality. There is a regularly repeating rhythmic pattern in poetry. We'll learn this in detail in another class, about meter, how this musical quality is maintained in poetry. And then there is this rhyme, yet another sound element. Then poetry contains imagery, there is descriptions with sensory details, visual images, auditory images, gustatory images, all these images which pertain to our sense organs. Then the use of figurative language like similes, metaphors, personification, symbolism. So this figurative language also give this beauty and depth to the poem. And the sound effects, that is another element in poetry, like alliteration, onomatopoeia, assonance, consonance, rhythm, and rhyme. Now, all these contribute to the sound effects created in a poem. The poems have their own unique shape and they get it from these elements. Poetry comes in different forms and different patterns. We'll talk about these different genres, different forms of poetry in the coming classes. There are so many kinds of poems. Poetry, then come to the function of poetry. Matthew Arnold says, it's a criticism of life. Poetry has a particular purpose. But it doesn't always have to make sense, There are poems which just to enjoy for your aesthetic pleasure. There might be poems which gives a moral lesson and so on. Sometimes poems don't follow particular punctuation or the rules of capitalization. It may appear broken, but it's for a reason. There will be some meaning suggested for that. And then poetry does not have to be serious always. It can be funny or it can be silly, or the mood is different for different poems. Poetry uses language to create music and art. The poems contain some elements of fiction. There are poems, like for example, dramatic monologues, where you find stories, epics. There will be a setting, point of view, characterization, conflict, plot, theme, voice, style, mood, and so on. Poetry makes you see an aspect of life or the world in a new way. Poetry attempts to put into words inexpressible ideas and emotions.
Poetry should be seen, heard, and felt from the heart. Right? If you have any doubts, you can WhatsApp me, or you can post your doubts in Google Classroom or in the comment box below. Thank you. Have a good day.